Ooh! Greetings friends and welcome to Let's Make a Tower Defense part 4.2. In today's video we're going to make a cannon tower. Here we've got our arrow tower from the last video. We're just going to move this out of the way for now. And let's get stuck into sculpting our cannon tower. So we can go into sculpt mode. When it comes to colors and that sort of thing, I don't really have any kind of preference. I feel like a cannon tower is maybe brown, you know? Not sure why. I suppose you could make like a tank kind of a thing. Actually, let's make a kind of, so it looks a bit like almost like a tank. So we'll go green. You can place it sort of hereabouts. Actually, what's very important is put on guides and put on a grid snap just while you're placing it for the initial placement. And then you can go into it and you can see if it's got. You go into guides, make sure you've got your grid snap on, and go into mirror as well so that you can see it's nicely in the center. Then what we're going to do is make ourselves a nice barrel for the tower, which is where the cannonballs or whatever, or the rockets are going to be coming out of. And we can make it pretty short like that. If that's good for you, that's perfect, but might make it a little bit longer. Alrighty. And this is the gist of cannon tower sculpture. Very simple, as always. We like to keep it simple here. You can go and turn the grid snap guide off. Alrighty. So now let's get into some of the logic. So in order for us to get into the logic of the cannon tower, I'm going to go into gadgets, logic and processing, and stick down a microchip. I'm going to put it right on the barrel of the old cannon tower, and I can name this cannon tower. Woot! Okay, cool. And the first thing we're going to do is stick down a nice old look-at rotator. And this one is going to be looking for baddie, and you can set the dampening quite high, or the damping quite high. You can, if you have the strength very high, that means it will track them very accurately, but it'll be so accurate that it's like the cannon like shivers with each little movement of the thing it's tracking. If you put dampening on or damping on, it smooths it out quite nicely, but it also slows it down. So play with these as you see fit. If you want to maybe increase the strength as well, and yeah, it really depends. It depends how accurate and how fast you want your turret to be moving, your cannon. Alrighty, and we're looking for baddie. Sweet. So let's just have a quick look to see if this works. So we haven't given it a range yet, but here are some baddies. Here they are approaching, and as you can see, the cannon tower is kind of, not actually sure where he's looking. Aha! You know what I did wrong? So I forgot to realign the look-at rotator. So what was happening was, you see this arrow off to the right, that's saying where the enemies are. Or rather, that's saying where the front of the look-at rotator is. So we set it so that this arrow points towards where the front of the look-at rotator is, and this is now what's going to be looking. You see, guys, I made a mistake, but at the end of the day, this will save you from making mistakes in the future, because I show you how to fix it. Woohoo! So there we are. Now we're looking directly at the baddies. We've got them in my sights. Alrighty. So that's tracking quite nicely. Now the next thing we want to do is figure out how to realign this actually after it's finished aiming at enemies. So in order to do that, we're going to need what I call an alignment cube, which is really just a block that I do in sculpt mode. I put it like generally in front of the old cannon tower, and on it, on this old alignment cube, I actually will go into its physical properties, so go into its seek menu. I'll turn visible and collidable off, but I still want to do stuff to it, so I'll go into show and hide, and I'll go preview invisibility. I'm also going to go into guides and just turn off my grid snap quickly. Alrighty. Then I'm going to go into gadgets, go into sensors and input, choose a tag, and stick this on the front of my alignment cube. Then this tag I'm going to call Cannon Aligner. Then on the other side, I'm going to stick down a trigger zone. And this trigger zone is going to show us, is going to help us detect our enemies. So I can call this this trigger zone detect enemies. Enemies, detect enemies. And it's going to have things to detect. It's going to be baddie. But we want to change the zone shape. So I'm going to go cube. Cube's quite nice. If you want them to be sort of shooting in front of you. If you want them to be able to shoot in like a 360 all the way around kind of a thing, then go for a sphere. You kind of want to create like a bit of a, it is kind of essentially a cube, but it's also kind of like a cone shape. The only problem with using the actual cone zone shape is that it's kind of not super great. It's really kind of small. So the cube is the way to go if you're shooting in front of you, and the sphere if you want to be shooting all around. But we're just going to shoot in front of us for now. Alrighty. Whoops. I think I just took a screenshot by accident. Okay. Then, so this is all good. We can close that. And then when it is detected, now we're going to go back into our cannon tower. Oops. Cannon tower's microchip. When an enemy is detected, it's going to power the look at rotator, which is looking at baddies. But not only that, okay guys, it's time to get funky with our logic. We're going to put down a NOT gate so that when an enemy is not detected, so when there's no enemies nearby, we're going to put down, actually we can copy this look at rotator. But of course now we're going to change it to look at the cannon aligner. So the NOT output will power this. So when it's not looking at an enemy, it'll be looking forward. It'll be looking straight. And it's important to use this aligner cube, because if you don't, if you use, for example, a gyroscope, the problem with the gyroscope is if you set it up to align to X and Y, that'll be consistent throughout the map. So if you put like a cannon tower over here, it won't look forward as in that way. It'll look this way. It'll look all the cannons will be looking in the same way. And if you're having cannons like on different angles and different sides, then that's not really going to work for you. I've tried using a keyframe before, but that messes with the animation. So the alignment cube is the way to go if you want to have your cannon sort of looking straight on if there's no one detected. But let's see if it works. So yeah, you can change the sort of size, so where it's positioned, you know, wherever the sort of resting position is. And then when it detects an enemy, then it's going to start looking for them. So there it goes. Ah, enemies spotted. Enemies. Pew, 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 pew. That's very cool. And then let's just make sure that these guys get out of here. It's going to go back to its resting position. So it's following them. It's following them. It's following them. It's clipping through there a little bit, which is perfectly fine at this stage. Okay, cool. And then when it's done, it goes back. It's like cool, going back into standby mode, which is perfect. That's just what we want. You can also, you can put a gyroscope on here if you like. And if you had a gyroscope, you would go to move as an output, and you would go gyroscope so that it aligned, give it some power. And you would say not align all axes, but you can just keep this arrow pointing up, and this will kind of make it just line up as well. And yeah. So that's the basics of the cannon, but now actually we want stuff to be shooting out of it. So the next thing for us to make is in fact a cannonball. So I shall leave this creativity up to you. If you want to be like, you know, sculpting all sorts of cool patterns onto it and create some like funky cannonball, that's awesome. You must totally go for it. For now I'm just going to stick with the super basic boy. So the cannonball actually has quite a few bells and whistles, quite a few things. And we're going to start by putting down a young microchip, which we all remember where that is. And I'm going to call this microchip Cannonball. Cannonball! Cannon. I'm not sure if it's one word or two actually, but I don't think the grammar gods will look down on me at the moment. Alrighty, so with this cannonball we want a few things going on. The first thing is that we want an impact sensor. The impact sensor is going to tell us when something happens, you know, when it hits something. We're also going to create a emitter. And this emitter is going to actually emit an explosion. So in order for us to get a nice explosion, we're going to go into search. Oopsie. We're going to go back to Media Molecules Quick Start Collection. We're going to go into MM Effects. We're going to go into Explosion. And we're going to just, we can make this kind of small. We can put this kind of over here. And that's totally fine. Then we're going to go into this emitter, set the emit speed to 0. If you set something's emit speed to 0, it kind of just spawns it in. If you give it speed, then it'll go in a particular direction. But if you set it to 0, doop, it'll just appear. You can set the time between emits to 0. You can set the emit mode to once, because the explosion is just going to happen one time. Then max emitted at once, you're going to set that to 0. And we can say emitted object lifetime 1 second. So the explosion will stick around for 1 second. Alrighty. Then we've got to choose what to emit. And the object to emit is going to be the explosion. We can move it so that it's at the center of the cannonball, so that it's like as it sort of explodes, it's going to be like in the center. You can change the size of this. It actually ends up being a bit smaller than you would think. So yeah, just be wary of that and change the size as you see fit. And we're going to make it so that when the impact sensor, we can have bumps, that's the default one, but you can also have touching. So when it touches something, it will then emit an explosion. But not only that, it's also going to deal some damage. And to deal damage, we're going to go health modifier. And we're going to open this up a little bit. We're going to go zone. We're going to go into zone properties. We're going to reduce the zone size because at the moment it's quite massive. I think we'll make it about so big. Make it at the center of the cannonball. That's pretty good. That's quite a nice sort of explosion damage radius. If you want to have a zone falloff, and remember the zone falloff is an area where it still has some effect, but it's reduced effect. So here in this circle it'll do, let's say, 100 damage, and then about here it'll do 50 damage, and here it'll do like 20 damage. So it's kind of, it just reduces the effect. Alrighty, that can also be activated by touch, or you can have it so that it's always working. We could actually have it so that it's always on, so that when you when it hits, it sort of as it flies through the air, it can be sort of dealing damage as well. Or you can just have it so that it's when it touches, it really works for you. You adjust that as you see fit. So at the moment we've got the impact sensor, we've got the emitter which emits the explosion, and we've got the thing that's dealing our damage. The next thing we're going to want to actually mess with or add into it is to have a timer, logic and processing, timer. And we can have start time, and then we can also go into moves and outputs to add a destroyer. So after about, let's say, after a few seconds, after it's touched something, it will disappear. Because if it disappears instantly, then these effects might not take effect. You know, it might not be able to do damage, and it might not be able to like emit its explosion nicely. So we're going to make it disappear after just a few seconds. But we don't want the cannonball bouncing around. We want it to explode and kind of disappear. So the final thing we shall add to our cannonball is a keyframe. And in this keyframe, we shall scope into the physical properties of our cannonball. So here we are, physical properties. And we'll go no longer visible, no longer collidable. And yeah, so that means when it hits something, it's going to go invisible, and it'll not collide with stuff, so it won't bounce around. It'll literally just go through the map and then disappear eventually. It'll only be going for 0.3 seconds, so it's not that deep. And yes, then we shall have this activated, like so. Make sure to put keep changes on. And there we shall have a cannonball. And now we want our cannon to actually fire it. So let's go into our cannon tower. We're going to say look at rotator. Then we're going to say we're going to choose an emitter actually. This is the thing that's going to shoot our cannonball. We can say emit object is going to be the cannonball. We can then move our canvas, our logic canvas, whatever you want to call it. We can move it so that it's kind of in front of the barrel. Choo choo choo, choo choo choo. And we can go grid snap quickly so that it's shooting it forwards. That's pretty good. I'm going to turn it off quickly while I make some minor adjustments. That seems pretty good. And it's going to shoot it. As for the time between emits, this is how often it shoots. So every 0.5 seconds. That's pretty fast. 0.1 seconds is like brrr, that's crazy. That's like 10 cannons in 1 second. So there we go there. Next thing we're going to change is we're going to leave it on continuous, because if it does it once, it's only going to shoot it once, but we want it to keep shooting every 0.5 seconds. We can set the max emitted at once, we can set that to infinite. For the emitted object lifetime, similar to the arrow, we don't want it to we don't want it to last forever, so we might make it last for 0.5 seconds. We want the speed to be a bit faster though, maybe 10, maybe something like 8. This definitely isn't as fast as the arrow, because the arrow is like a real like choo choo choo, like really fast sort of a thing, but the cannon can be a bit slower. Yeah, but let's make it so that when the target is found, then it is going to power the cannonball firer. So let's quickly turn off, let's go preview invisibility. When we go show and hide, preview invisibility, and let's see what we've got so far. Alrighty. So it's in its normal cannon aligned position. No enemy is spotted, so it's just aligning itself as usual. Here come our enemies. Let's see what happens over here. Boom, 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 boom. What's wrecking them? They are getting destroyed. Alrighty. That looks pretty good. Okay friends, so what I noticed in that last run through that we did, that last little playthrough, was that the cannonballs actually weren't always dealing damage. So what I'm going to do for that is just go into our cannonball logic, go to our health modifier and actually increase the size. We're going to turn off the zone fall off for now, but we're going to increase the zone size so that when it hits and it explodes, it's going to deal damage in a much larger area. Because we can't see how much damage the cannonballs are actually doing, I'm just going to go preview invisibility. Because we don't know how much damage they're actually doing, we don't have any health bars at this stage, we can't actually tell if they are doing damage, the cannonballs. So I think at the moment we're just going to increase the range and see how that works. Okay, that's better. That's loads better. It is a little bit too powerful. But the gist of it is that it's dealing damage in an area of effect and it's killing guys. So yeah, guys, that is it. What you might want to do is, if you don't want it to be taking dudes down instantaneously, you know, with full health, then you can actually incorporate a zone fall off. You could make this full damage AoE. So think of it like that. So the zone size is the full damage zone, and then the zone fall off is the reduced damage zone. That's another way of thinking of it. But friends, that is essentially it. One other change I'm going to do is just to raise our tower slightly off the ground. And the reason why I'm doing that is because the barrel itself was actually clipping into the what shall we call this? The wall along the side here. So friends, I'm going to turn on rather preview invisibility, and let's have a look at how it runs. Don't want a copyright issue, to be honest. Alrighty, here comes Pain City. Boom. Boom. Wrecked. Alrighty, friends, that is the gist of it. That is what happens when you get a cannon tower. Let's put our arrow tower here as well, just for good measure. Let's see if these poor fools can survive. Oh, they actually can't even get past it. They can't even get past it. Oh, whoops. Let's see what's happening here. Ah, friends, one last thing that I haven't done is, this is a very important step, very silly. Good thing I messed around to see. You've got to put the cannon itself, the cannon aligner, the cannonball, as well as the explosion. You've got to put these in a group. So you say group. Now, if you want to spawn this in a different spot, or you can actually move this between dreams now as well. It'll completely work. You see, it aligns there. If you move it here, it will align there. If we put it here, it'll shoot the enemies, and then it'll align back when they aren't in the zone. Boom, boom, boom. The reason, once again, I'm not sure if I actually clarified this in the beginning, the reason we have the aligner is because if you don't have it, then what happens is the cannon will keep looking in the direction it was actually, the last direction it fired in. And if you wanted to do that, that's totally fine. But it's also nice to have a block that doesn't move, so that the area of effect is locked in at this. Because at first I had all the microchip on the barrel of the gun, but of course when it turns to face an enemy, if the area of effect is attached to the cannon itself, that means that the range is going to move. So that means rather than just being able to shoot in an area like this, if it was attached to the gun, then it would be able to shoot in an area like this, if that makes any sense. So it would move the AoE. So the reason I have the aligner cube over here is just so that we can get it back to its normal position, and of course that we can have a stable area of effect and the range that doesn't move around with the cannon. So that is the basic difference. We've got the cannon that moves around and will realign itself. We've got the arrow tower that doesn't move but has a arrow shooter that does move around. So kind of a static tower and then a mobile tower. But both of them have a mobile element. So the arrow shooter is the mobile element here, and the tower is the static element here. For the cannon tower, the tower itself is the mobile element, and the aligner cube is the static element. So there you are, friends. That's a little bit of tower logic for you. Can't wait to get stuck in with the next parts and the next videos. Thanks for sticking around. Catch you on the flip-flop. Peace out, friends. Woo!